Wait a minute. Where are we at? Oh yeah. Oh word. Sweet.
Yo, so we are back with another amazing episode of the O Word podcast. I'm here with Charlie Talbert, Kenosha legend, I will say. He's done what a lot of us here in Kenosha would love to do, and that's make it out to the big city, to the stars and lights of Hollywood, and live a dream, some would say. So Charlie, man, first I want to thank you so much for taking some time out. I know you're down in New Orleans right now working on some stuff. Thanks for taking some time and joining us. How you been?
Koerri, man, thanks for having me. I'm super excited. I especially enjoyed your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles podcast. It was awesome.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm living in the pandy, living the pandy life. I just, I've got a movie I'm going to be working on in Tennessee in like a month or so, and then there's another one up in New York that I'm. It looks like it might happen. So I'm a little like sketchy about that because I don't fly anywhere ever. Like I don't fly. I just
mm.
don't fly. If I've got to go overseas, I'll do it. But I'm always, no matter what, for the last like 6-7 years, I just drive. So like if I gotta go shoot something in LA, my myself is in the car and I'm in LA and I'm there. It's as simple as that. So yeah, man, I'm excited to be hanging out and reaching out to my hometown. My poor hometown. I love my hometown. This is crazy. I'm so glad that you know my cousin Justin. That's once you're family with my family, we're family. That's pretty much how it's always worked.
Yeah, man. We have that connection. And yeah, I would be doing him a disservice if I didn't say shouts out to Justin and shouts out to his YouTube channel, Government Sween. You guys should subscribe to his channel. He wanted me to say that. I told you I would. I got you, bro. No worries. No worries. Yeah, but
Nice.
before we get like too deep, I like you said you don't fly anywhere. Me personally, I'm not huge on flying either. Why did you decide not to fly and just take the long drive?
Dude, I've never been a fan. I was in a plane once, years and years and years ago, that dropped like 1,000 feet. It was like
Oh,
insane, and it was like scary. And I've never liked flying, like since day one. I remember, so I didn't think about it when I went to go do Angus because I had all that excitement of, oh my God, I'm going to do a movie. I'm getting out of here. I'm gonna be different, and the world is awesome. And then flying home, I was like, I gotta fly. you know, like you did it already, dude. You're good. And then the second time I had to fly was for it was for this movie called The Mighty, which I was in the running for, and this was way back in the day, and it was just after Flight 800 TWA went down, and then like Flight 801 went down like 2 nights before. I had to fly back, and I'm like, oh, and I had to fly like TWA or something like that, and I was just like, I don't want to fly. So there's like fear of your oversized self should not be 30,000 feet in a metal tube because you don't have wings settled into me over all these years. So I just drive if I can drive. Like I go out for pilot season usually every year. Last year I was working on the Watchmen and NCIS New Orleans, so there was no going out for me. I had to stay here because I was shooting up in Georgia. But it was one of those things where I was like, you know what? I get in the car, I drive, I'm there in roughly a day and a half. And, I also get to see the countryside and I get to think about what I'm going to do. I've always been about driving. So the flying thing, I don't want to think about flying. I want to think about the project I got to work on, or I want to think about going out there and booking more work. So I try not to instill as much fear in myself as possible.
mhm. No, I feel that. I definitely feel that, man. So, I mean, it's September 10th right now when we're recording this, but September 15th is it's a pivotal date in especially your life. It's going to be the 25th anniversary of Angus. So I want to get into Angus pretty deep because that's so you were the first person I've ever heard of that has made it out of Kenosha, right? And I remember being a kid. I was born in 88. So in 95, I was like 8. So I was young, but I wasn't so young that I wouldn't remember things like that, right? And I just remember
Right.
my godmother is like a huge movie buff, and she like put me on to so many different movies, and is the reason why I love movies to this day. And I just remember her always saying, like, man, Angus, like Angus, the guy in Angus is from Kenosha. And it just was one of those things that always stuck with me. And like through the years, people talk about like Mark Ruffalo and all of that stuff. But to me, I'm like, no, but the OG is Angus. Charlie Talbert is the OG from Kenosha. So I want to know like what that experience was like. I know you were discovered at the Oasis. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how was that for you? Was it something that you always wanted to do as a kid, or is it something that kind of just, you know, you were hanging out one day and it just fell in your lap?
Yeah, it fell in my lap. Well, first of all, is your godmama still around?
She is not, unfortunately.
Well, love to godmom. That's awesome. Yeah, man. So yeah, we were. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the old car shop that's on the corner of 63rd and 11th, Ruffalo and Elon,
Mm.
right across the street from Bain Park. So I lived on 11th, like half a block down from that, away from the park, and pretty much everybody I know used to work over at Tony Ruffalo's place, and I eventually got a job there, and and I would do odd things like sweeping, went to car cleaning, went to helping him out when I could, and we would go down to the velodrome, and he was really active and still is very active in the cycling, the velodrome, the whole world of you know United States Cycling Federation, and we went down to the Lake Forest, Illinois velodrome to definitely support our friend Amy Tremelling, rest her soul. She used to cycle, and she was I want to say she was prepping, because I remember we went to Olympic tryouts. I think it was 2 years later down in Colorado. But we stopped at the Wendy's, and I was like, I'm pretty hungry. We stopped over at Wendy's, and Tony got us all food. But I was waiting in line, and a friend of mine, I think it was Christina Blau, was working behind the counter, and I was making her laugh, and it was like probably like something like 30, 35 people in this Lake Forest Oasis, and up there, and Oasis basically is restaurants that are above the freeway. And I'm at the Wendy's, and they're the people at the 31 flavors, and I'm telling jokes, and I can't remember the joke I was telling, but there's this guy down the line going like, "Hey, why is it taking so long to get my food? I'm starving. It's midnight." He looks around, and there's chunky old me, just telling jokes and trying to use my charm. And so long story short, he comes up to me and he's like, "Hey man, you're pretty funny. You want to be in a movie?" And we've been looking for this guy for a few years. And I'm like, "Are you hitting on me? Like, what's going on here, man?" And he's like, "Why would you say that?" I'm like, "Well, it's near Chicago. I got titties. You want me to be in a movie? It's kind of weird, And he's like, "No, no, no, no. I did this movie called Space Invaders, and we've been looking for this character." And he kind of told me who the character was, and he's like, "Well, can you come down to Planet Hollywood, on Wednesday? The casting director's name is Jane Alderman, and she cast the movie Rudy." And I'm like, "Rudy, I love the movie Rudy, And so I did that. First of all, I went home and I was like, "Mom, I'm going to be in a movie." She said, "Shut up, go to bed." And I said, "Okay." Then I convinced her it was all real. Told her about the dude. I'm like, "Mom, we got to go meet a strange man I met on the freeway. Let's go do it." So somehow she fell for it. We went down. I went in, and he's like, "Go ahead and read your sides, man." And I'm like, "What's the sides?" And if you don't know what sides are, there's mini scripts, so you can look at your scenes without being too distracted by the paper. And he goes, "What do you mean? What's the sides?" And I'm like, "Hi." And he goes, "Oh, you're the kid I found in the Wendy's." I'm like, "Yeah." So we chatted. He had me do a couple impersonations, because that's what I told him I like to do. And he's like, "Have you ever acted before?" I was like, "I've done school plays a whole bunch, and I've slept in every school in Kenosha, which I normally do before I had a play or something like that, because my family was always friends with the janitors. So they would like set me up with a cot or whatever and be like, "Good." And I'm like, "Cool." So, I slept in Durkee before they got rid of it. Trimper, Ruth, or Bradford, you name it, I slept in it. Wow. And so I went back. He said, "Do me a favor, come back in a couple of weeks, or come back next week, learn these lines, and we'll see what we can do." And then I realized he wasn't going to be there, so I thought it was done. I was like, "Damn, the one guy that liked me, the one guy that saw something, ain't that just my luck? Darn kids from Kenosha never get anything, And So I went back. She put me on tape. They sent it out. I got couple weeks later, I get a call saying, "Hey, would you like to come out to California? We'll fly you. We'll give you like, you know, $80 a day, so you just have some spending money, and we'll put you up in Santa Monica by the ocean, and you know, we'll have you come in and read." And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. So me and my mom went out, and we got to LA. We stayed at the Radisson. And there's a scene in Angus where I dance with a blow up doll. So we went down to the pier, and I won one of those like blow up dumbbells, the fake, you know, weights, you know, from back in the day. And I used that as my doll. And we went in, I think it was the next day, we went in, and I'm walking into the casting office, and I see like Whoopi Goldberg walking by me, and I'm like, comic relief, jumping jack, oh, burglar. Like, you know, I'm like flipping out. I'm like, oh my God, that's Whoopi. And then I see like all these different actors, you know. I even saw Ethan Suplee, but I didn't know who he was at the time, you know. And I went in, and they put me in this little casting room, and I'm sitting there, and it's Richard Hicks was a casting associate, and Ronnie Esco was the casting director, and I'm just sitting in, and they bring Chris Owen, who's my co-star in Angus, and they sit us down, and there's a camera set up, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna have you guys read some lines, but can you give us a few minutes?" Well, what we didn't know, as we're sitting there finishing each other's jokes and having a great time, is all of them, all the producers, the casting director, the director, they're all in the other room watching a live feed of that room, and which is creepy, but awesome because it worked out. But they were watching the live feed of the room, and they came back in. They're like, "Hey, look, we're not going to read today. Do you mind if we just give you $200 and send you guys to Disneyland to see you to get along? And maybe we'll pick this up again on Thursday." And we're like, I look at Chris, and Chris looks at me. I'm like, who the hell is not going to get along in the happiest place on earth with $200 in their pocket? And they're like, "Well, do you want it?" And I'm like, no, I'm not stuffing. I'm in, you know. I'm a welfare kid. Give me $200. Put me in Disneyland. Let's do it. It ain't going to happen again. And so we went down, had a great day, came back, and then they brought James Vanderbeek into the room, and we didn't really click with him, which they loved. And he was really talented, and it was just great. And then like I went back home to Wisconsin, and nothing for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, nothing. And I'm just like, well, I guess that didn't happen. I'm gonna have to work at the local. Maybe Becker's still hiring. I don't know, you know. And so I get a call from Patrick Reed Johnson, the director, who's still to this day one of my really good friends, and he goes, "Hey man, I'm really, really sorry, and I really appreciate you taking the time coming out to audition and stuff like that, but I'm afraid you're gonna have to spend the next 4 months with us." And I was like, "Well, I guess that. Wait, what?" And that was it, man. That was it.
Awesome. Oh man. So you and Chris Owen, you guys hit it off like right from the jump, huh?
Yeah, I just actually finished the pitch for with a buddy of mine, my buddy Chris Heiliger. You're gonna find out a lot of my best friends life are named Chris. Like I was friends with Chris Sheldon in school, you know. All these Chris's are always there, you know. And I just finished an animated series pitch with like a lot of really talented actors, like Jared Benkins from Looking for Alaska and Writing on Bathroom Walls, Jeff Pope from Hap and Leonard, which I worked on, Todd Giebenheim, Michelle Prada from Vita, Jackie Tone from Glow is going to jump on at some point once we get going. But Chris and his now wife just lent their voices to the cartoon pitch and the table read. So I'm really jazzed. We just sent it out overseas Monday. So
wow.
It's called the Dream Team Machines. You know why it's a Dream Team Machines? I didn't come up with a name, but it's all my friends working together. So it's definitely the Dream Team.
Awesome, man. Yeah, that sounds dope, man. Hopefully everything goes good with that, man. Hey, I got my fingers crossed for you too. So 25 years. How's it feel that, you know, we're approaching, you know, that milestone in a couple days here for Angus?
20 years was a big one for me. You know, a lot of interviews and stuff like that went down. 25 years for me, it's not as impactful because Angus is so much part of my life that it's like, you can't separate the two. So I'm always celebrating it and I'm always hating it. You know, every time I go into a room and I don't book it and I get that rejection or whatever, I'm just like, it's just you and me, Angus. We can do this, you know? So he's always there with me. you know, it's been a big life change. I moved down here to the Southeast to get back into the film business because I quit after Art School Confidential. I decided I wanted to get married. I wanted to have children. I accidentally married a child. She was way too young, you know,
Mm.
and we just, after a while, it just didn't really work. So we just decided we were really good friends, and we broke that off. And, but we're still super good friends. So we just did it wrong. And that was the conversation I had with her when we split. And I was working for, in the meantime, I was a haberdasher. I used to work for Joseph A. Bank Clothiers. And at one point I was, you know, assistant regional manager for loss prevention for all 26 stores. And I've always been into clothing. In fact, when I left after high school, at the end of high school, I told my grandma I'd be back in 2 weeks. I moved to California, fell in love with a girl that found me on the internet back in 1997, moved up to San Jose and got a job as a haberdasher at Rep Limited Big and Tall. And then when that was dying down, the assistant manager who I was a co-assistant with said, hey man, like, you know, and I heard Chris Owen's voice on the radio for October Sky. And I was like, you know what? I was going to go back to Wisconsin, but I think I need to go down to LA. And he was like, let me give you $500, man. Let me help you out. And he gave me $500. I got in the car, moved back down, and Chris Owen's voice had dropped. And I was like, all right, man, let's do it. I mean, we worked on 14 projects together here and there. And I lived with Chris for like 14 years after that. It was really awesome, you know? And so it's always a part of me, you know? So I celebrate it every day, you know? 25 years, holy cow. That just puts my life in perspective. It just goes, Charlie, you're getting old. And then I look at my gray hair and I go, yeah, but play into it. You no longer have a baby face so much. You know, I still have a baby face, but I don't have, you know, I'm 42, you know, I'm 10 years older, you know, so it's just one of those things where I'm like trying to play into that age. I'm like, yeah, hair, thin out a little bit more, thin out. You can do it. You're not Angus anymore. You're not a funny fat kid. You're not this. Go in there and kill it. And that's what's been happening down here in the Southeast. And my buddy Chris Berry, all these Chris's from Django Unchained, 12 Years a Slave. He's in the new show Your Honor, where both are with Bryan Cranston. That's coming out on Showtime. He's in Salem. He had been working down here, and he was working on Django Unchained, and he'd been an actor for 14 years prior to moving here in 2009. And we met on a movie called, it was my second movie, and it was called Hollywood Horror. And it turned out that was just like a tax write-off. But he and I became best friends. And he said, dude, you got to come to New Orleans. There's work down here. And so as soon as Joseph A. Bank got bought out by Men's Warehouse, I said, screw it. I loaded up the car, sold everything off in the apartment in 2 weeks, and I blind moved here. And like 4 days later, I was working on The Big Short, you know,
wow.
after a 66-year hiatus.
Oh, wow. So how is it in New Orleans? Is it it's thriving down there then? I've noticed there is kind of like, it seems to be a surge in like Southern film production.
Well, I would tell you, honestly, Koerri, if you look like me, if you're overweight, if you play into kind of character styles that I play into, no, it's really dry. There's not a lot of work. Don't come down here.
I feel that. I definitely feel that.
But yeah, no, it's been a good move. I mean, since I've been down here, I think I've worked on 15 projects, but I've worked on, for me, even though they're smaller roles, down here I work on smaller roles, but I get in larger projects, dream projects, man. I mean, when Watchmen came out they were doing casting still in like late or early 2009 for Watchmen, or late 2008. I was like begging my manager. I'm like, please get me in on this movie. You know, it's Watchmen, you know. And then, you know, I get a call last year, and my agent's like, hey, they want you to read for Fat Man and Crowd for this project. It's called Brooklyn. And I'm like, I don't want to be Fat Man and Crowd. I am Fat Man and Crowd. I don't want to be that. And she's like, no, you probably want to be that. I'm like, no. And she's like, it's the Watchmen. I said, okay, Batman's on his way. You know, so I got there, and I go into this little room, and it's the casting director, Megan Lewis, who's just phenomenal. She has really, the casting director down here, casting directors are very personable, but they're still doing their job, and they're still, you know, they're straight professional. And so I go into the room, I do an audition for a guy who's in episode 4, I think, and he sees Amy Smart coming out, and he looks over and he goes, hey, why are you arresting him? He's a hero. And then she says something to him, he's like, you're a bitch, you know, he swears at her. And so I changed it up a bit, and I was like, I played it more serious, and I was like, hey, why are you arresting him? He's a hero, and they're standing around, and I'm like, it's not right, it's not fair, it's not fair, and it's just me in this little room going, it's not fair, it's not fair, and the director's like, Attica, whoa, Stephen Williams, and I leave, and I find out I don't get the part. But then I get a call not even a week later saying, yeah, they want you for a bigger part. And I was like, Watchmen. And then I got to work with Giovanna Depo and Regina King. And I'm sitting there, and Regina King is standing there with me. And I go, you know when you feel good, Regina? And she goes, when? I mean, about your career? And she goes, when? I go, I don't know if you're ever going to know this feeling, but it's when you're trading lines with Regina King. And it was just really cool, man. I got to see the reveal of my episode that day, This Extraordinary Being, episode 6, and I just cried like a little boy. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm a part of this, and it shook my world. So it's, so I don't even remember the original question, but I just feel so much like energy to all that. I think it's because we're living in this weird time that is now reflecting and mirroring what's going on,
No, I definitely feel that. So it seemed like you were kind of not necessarily in awe, but definitely like had a realization when you were working with Regina King. And I mean, you've worked with tons of big name. I mean, you work with Kathy Bates, man. So like out of everyone that you've maybe encountered or worked with, or maybe even just got to see work, who is your favorite person that you've encountered up close and personal?
God, man, it's really hard to say. I mean, everybody is a different level of favorite for me. I mean, Chris Owen is definitely my favorite because he was my entrance into this world. Everybody that worked on Angus is definitely my favorite. I mean, in Angus, I got to work with the director of Empire Strikes Back, Irvin Kershner. That's who plays chess with my grandpa. I'm like, are you kidding me? I got to work with George C. Scott, who worked with not only amazing himself. As soon as he said my name, I go, General Patton knows my name, but he worked with Peter Sellers. It's just like mind blowing that I've entered this world. I mean, I had this cool moment once where I was working on a show called Who's Your Daddy, directed by Andy Fickman. And it was like one of those teen comedies, and it had like Wayne Newton and William Atherton, the bad guy from Ghostbusters, and Die Hard. And I'm just like, oh my God, that's William Atherton. And, I even got excited about the principal in Angus who actually worked on Doogie Howser before that because I was a huge Doogie fan, And I'm just like, this is too much. I will tell you the first time I froze up and I just like locked up and could not handle it. There's a movie called Art School Confidential, directed by Terry Zwigoff. And it was actually one of the last films I did before I stepped out of the acting thing. And it had Ethan Suplee, and it had Angelica Houston and Steve Buscemi, and a really killer cast. And I go in, I audition. It's a Saturday night, and the casting director says to me, she goes, "Oh my God, sweetheart, I just gave the part to Ethan Suplee." And I was just like, wow, because we had such a good audition. She was kind of like, it would have really been nice to see us both again to figure out which way to go. And I was like, that's awesome. I love Ethan Suplee. He's always been super dope. He's like somebody I always like, I'm always impressed with, and I always watch. And she goes, well, and I go, listen, there's a character in the movie that plays Ethan Suplee's mini-me, which is like a mini Kevin Smith-ish, Ethan Suplee mix. I'd really love to do that character. And she's like, all right, yeah, let me see what I can do. 3 weeks go by, nothing. I mean, I made her cry in the audition. I was like, come on. And so I call my manager, who is still my manager to this day, Beverly Strong. I love her very deeply. And I go, did we never hear anything back about Art School Confidential? And she goes, no. I said, you know what? Give me the casting director's number now. And she's like, no, we don't do that. And I go, look, you're going to have to give it to me, or I'm going to let you go. I'm going to find somebody who's going to give it to me. Because I was really adamant. And it was the dumbest move, and it turned out to be an awesome move. And I said, look, you can can me. You can get rid of me if this fails epically. And she goes, okay, if you're going to take that kind of chance. I said, cool. So I call casting because I have a friend that works in the office, and sure as heck, guess who picked up? It's the casting director. And I'm on speakerphone. I don't know this. And I'm like, oh, hey. And she's like, Charlie, why are you calling? I'm like, well, remember that audition I had? And we got emotional. And it was great. And I wanted this part. You're shooting on Monday. And I didn't hear anything. And she goes, well, I didn't want to slap you in the face by giving you a lesser role to Ethan Suplee, your friend. And I was like, oh, you smack me in the face. You can step on my balls with heels. I don't care what you do. I got to work on this movie. And I hear laughter in the background. And it's two familiar laughs. Or one familiar laugh and one I don't know. It was Terry Zwigoff, the director, and it was John Malkovich. They were in the room talking with the cast director about something. And I hear Terry go, I hear, hold on, John. Charlie. And I go, yeah. He goes, it's Terry. And I'm like, hey, Terry. I'm like, I'm fucked. I'm losing my manager. It's all over. And he goes, show up to set on Monday. You got the part. And yeah, and I go to set, and there's John Malkovich. I could not speak. It took me about 6 hours to work up the nerve to be like, hey, thanks for being there. You know? So I'm in awe with so many of these people that, like you, touched my world when I was growing up. And that's why I do this. This is why I'm in the business, is if I can make somebody laugh or cry when they need to cry, or just feel something or get something out when they need to get it, especially now, you know, that's why I do this. And that's worth all the rejection for that one yes that touches that one person. Like, I just worked on Teenage Bounty Hunters, and I got like 300 new followers in the last couple of weeks for that on Instagram at Charlie Talbert Performer. And but there was an Instagram that they all went to, which was a fake Instagram for the character Richard Kuntz 1 from that show, who's a teacher. I'm not going to ruin why they all went to that Instagram, but then they came and found me, and they were like, oh man, I had a teacher just like you, and this is crazy. Of course, there were a few people that like, are the girls here? Because I want to talk to the, yeah. But it's that thing that really, it was like a gift. And there was one moment I worked on Who's Your Daddy, which I was going to mention, where I was working with Dave Thomas from SCTV, and him and Eugene Levy had came by, and they both said to me when we were hanging out, and they go, God, you really remind me of John Candy. He was just an actor who happened to be big. And I had always emulated Chris Farley. And hell, I worked on Chris's brother's show a month before he died. And, I still have Chris's jacket from Beverly Hills Ninja, the one where it's all tiger striped. And it was actually created by Greg Nicotero, and he saw it flipped. But I was just like, this is it. This is the joy that I get. This is everything I ever wanted. And no matter what, that's again why I celebrate Angus like every day.
Yeah, I mean, it really has. I mean, it's touched a lot of people. The story itself of the film it's a great story. It's really heartwarming as well. And I mean, I'm sure a lot of people can relate, to the life that he kind of had. Not everyone's perfect. Not everyone always gets the girl, or at least thinks they can get the girl. But if you persevere, and you kind of just like Angus's grandpa always says, forget what everybody else says and what everybody else thinks, and you just be yourself and do you can make it through pretty much, make it through anything. Yeah. And I mean, I personally kind of live by that. So, going back and rewatching the film again, and I've seen the movie countless times, but watching it,
I haven't
again
seen
recently,
it. Is it good? Or
it's really good. And honestly, and it's my birthday today. I turned 32, so I'm a grown man.
Happy birthday!
Hey, thanks. I appreciate it. But as a grown man, I still was finding myself getting emotional at times in the film, and those are the types of movies that I love, not just because of like the nostalgic feelings that you get from the movie, but it's actually like, it's a very, very good film, anything that can pull emotion out of you is something that I respect, so to see that the movie after 25 years holds up, can still, be a tearjerker at times, but then also make you feel really, really good. And then also make you like cherish the friends that you have. You know, it's a classic, it's timeless. And I'm so glad and happy that someone from Kenosha is attached to it, because it's one of those films that you can be like, hey man, like I talk to people, I've been going around asking people if they've seen the movie. A lot of people have seen it, but there's some younger people that maybe haven't seen it, and I tell them what it's about. And I've had people come back to me saying that they've seen it now. They're like, man, I can't believe I've never seen this. And it's like, oh man, that guy's from Kenosha. So it's one of those things. And you know, the community here, you know, it's a real tight knit place. And people love to support, you know, what we have going on here, whether it be like local businesses or entertainers and stuff like that. So it's one of those things where it's a great film to be able to be like, hey man, like you want to see something really dope that has somebody from Kenosha in it that's not the Avengers, because the Avengers is super cool too.
Right.
But if you want to see like a good film that was made, check that out. So man, so with everything you have going on now, like you said, like you're on Teenage Bounty Hunters, you have a few things that are in the work right now. Like, is there a specific thing that you're looking for? Are you gonna remain on the actor side of the thing? Are you looking? I know you're, you know, involved with a new project. Are you looking at more of becoming a producer in the future? Do you ever, you know, even see you throwing your hat in the ring as being a director or anything like that?
I do see my hat. I do see my hat in the ring as a director at some point in the world, but it's not producing and directing is not. I mean, I used to have a show called the Charlie Talbert Show on CBS Mobile, but this was like back in 2008. I remember like sleeping in my office next to the Ferguson Show and stealing their guest stars. And I remember when Obama got elected. I mean, I was sleeping at CBS to learn how to edit all this stuff. I love being creative and I love giving my friends work because so many friends have given me work, especially my friend Farrah West. She's given me a ton of work. And I taught her how to roller skate in one of my friend's houses, you know, back in the day. And now she's a casting director. So she always brings me in. And it's about that community of just building and working with your friends. And I remember all the way through the 90s, all of us really working together. Like we were all doing stuff together, no matter what the movie was. And people would find out we were friends. They'd be like, oh, yeah, bring him in, you know. And usually we were doing this stuff together. It's right now, it's just about the performing and it's about changing up the persona, you know. I people have always seen me as the funny fat guy, but if you look at me, I don't have the fat guy neck. And guess what you shoot when you're shooting a movie? Right here to here. It doesn't really sell too much. So it was nice coming down here that my roles don't revolve around my size. And that's a real big thing because it allows me to give different sides of myself, you know. I like to aim and shoot towards a general direction in the same ballpark of John Candy and Stephen Root. You know, I'm a chameleon. Every time you see me, I'm a little bit different, but it's par for the course for what we're working on. And it, you know, it doesn't take away, but it only adds to the story. And I'm finding a lot of that beauty in these other roles, these ancillary roles in films, because you're the stepping stone to what people need. And it's been great. I mean, I just worked with Barry Jenkins, who directed, you know, Moonlight and just writing and If Beale Street Could Talk, and I had been auditioning for that since July of last year, and when I finally worked out in March, dude, I was just a ball of tears, and that's how much I enjoy doing all this stuff, you know, and I'm really looking forward to that coming out. And now what I do is whenever I'm going to work on something that's based on a book, I will read that book from cover to cover before I ever put myself on tape for it. So there's really cool stuff that I want to continue doing, the performing in front of the camera. But I'm sure at some point I'm going to direct something because I have fun putting all my friends together. I mean, we just got a cat. We started working on this animated series literally 3 days after I went into quarantine on the 11th of March. And we just finished a full pitch trailer. We just finished a full table read with 22 different cast members. A lot of them were brilliant credits. And it's just because they said, hey, you want to do something cool? And they did. You know, so that's really what it's about for me. It's just about the collaboration. If they want me to do something else and not act, they want me to do something, but I'm still helping somebody's vision, somebody's dream come true. And this vision for the animated series wasn't mine. It was my buddy Chris Heiliger, who happened to be the reverend at my wedding, you know, and friend of a friend. And now we've been like, you know, 15-year-long friends, and he trusts me enough to take his idea and roll with it. So I want to be everywhere where I can reach out and give virtual hugs to everyone who needs it.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds good. And I mean, that kind of is becoming more and more the model nowadays too, you know, especially with like social media. You know, I'm kind of coming up in it, so it's a little different for me. You know, it's not
Right.
more of a transition for me. It's more of, this is the game, so play the game this way. Being, you know, kind of, we'll say, on the analog side of things and now into the digital realm, how is it, you know, are things a lot different, especially when it comes to auditioning, trying to even find roles, different types of people that you're able to work with? And then also, does it seem to be more abundant, seeing as it's a little easier to produce things nowadays, depending on what kind of platform they end up on? Now we have like the digital platforms that are creating a lot of content and stuff like that too, and the streaming services on top of the big cable networks and stuff.
Well, I would tell you, to answer that question, it's like a double-sided coin. I'm not in the room when they're deciding who they're going to see based on their numbers for social media. I mean, I only have like 1,800 followers, 1,864 followers, you know, but it's one of those things where I'm just trying to share what's going on in my world with social media. But keep in mind, though, 2008, I was producing phone content for Verizon for CBS, and I beat Letterman, and I beat out Big Brother, you know, and I've been there kind of since the beginning of social media, but I didn't really. I was trying to stay away from it a lot. I was pushing myself away from it. It was only when I came down here, really, I started exploring my online presence. I'm not a huge Twitter fan because it's just a little too political for my taste. I have one, but that's more or less to promote projects or to promote other people's things going on. Um, I really stick with my Instagram and my Facebook for reaching out to people and talking to fans. But I also, I think if you've got what it takes caliber wise and you're right for the part, I think that social media will eventually will out in my particular case, because I've been doing it for so long. You know, I've done about 60 projects now. So I have enough of a resume that it's a little easier for me to say, you know, for my agents to say, oh, this is Charlie. He was a child actor. He's doing this now. He's been in this. He's been in that. I mean, since I've lived here, I've worked on, you know, now with 3 Oscar winning or nominated directors. And I'm not worried. I know that there's a bunch of people that are, you know, that have to rely on the social media nowadays, but it depends on the project, really. You know, what's the meat of the project? Because I was very distraught when reality TV became a thing. I was like, what happened to doing sitcoms? And, you know, let's go make people laugh for a half hour. I don't want to do reality stuff where it's not, you know, where it's not really scripted. I want to bring the real emotion. And then I found out reality TV is mostly scripted. And I was like, that's terrible. That's just taking the acting out of acting, you know. And there's a beauty about reaching people. Now we think, oh, that girl's crazy, or that guy's, you know, a nutbag, or whatever, you know, when we watch reality TVs, or why is he doing that? I don't want that. I want to reach out to you and talk about the core of your being, you know. And even when we did the Charlie Talbert show, it was still all of my friends. I hired even my ex-girlfriend at the time. I was like, I want you to come in because you're hilarious, you know. And we do like shorts, 3-minute shorts of like me doing Lord of the Charlie Potter, where I keep trying to make a Lord of the Ring movie, but it keeps turning into Harry Potter, you know, stuff like that, random thoughts. And then I would just change the idea. It was like YouTube in my brain. So completely familiar with it. Just was avoiding it because I didn't feel that I need it. And I still kind of feel that I don't need it, but I ride the wave a bit for those that on the other end of the camera that want it. Does that answer your question, I hope?
Yeah, it definitely does. So, so because I completely understand that, because not necessarily like having the resume is always gonna, it's always gonna kind of help you out. You know, it's like we know you know what you're doing. It'll be easier for us. We can just get you in and out. And I feel like social media, at least in like the early stages, I will say like the middle stages of the social media adoption, it kind of made things kind of bad for a little bit. You know, there was a lot of people, and this is just as a consumer, I'll say this, there was a lot of people that kind of were put in positions or given certain jobs and roles that probably weren't ready for them, and there was a lot of content that was produced that was not that good. There are some though that have kind of worked their way through, got the necessary training and stuff like that, and are doing really great. So I feel like we're starting to like balance it back out, which is really, really cool to see,
You know,
you
I
know.
think that people, once they got on set and they realized that it was you really do got to put in the time and the work to sustain it. That's why we're seeing more of a balance. And those people that were the pioneers that were switching from social media into the performing arts world, they got taught a hard lesson really quick, and they were able to pass that on to the next generation that's been, you know, saying, okay, I do got to know my stuff. I've got to be ready. So we are getting some really cool undiscovered talent that come through, and that's great. I wish we had that back in the day, but then also again, I don't wish we had that, because maybe my world would have been different. You know, maybe I wouldn't be doing what I do. You know, maybe I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. You know, and I embrace both social media as well as embrace the traditional form from my era of performing arts and before my era, because I grew up on everything pre-me, you know, from pre-me existing in the film world. And I never had my sights set on acting or anything like that, but I knew I was destined to do something to entertain people. I even tried my hand at that's how I got back into acting. Was I was, my buddy Dan Smith. He right now he runs a video game company, which I can't really talk about right now. But he runs a video company overseas that's hugely popular all over the world. And he and I became friends. He's been in the industry forever. And I woke up one morning, I'm completely naked. My room is half mirrors. And I stood up and I was like, you know, when you have a beautiful relationship with a girl, when she's looking at you and you're looking at her, and you guys make that special eye contact, and she's just like right there, you know, like 15 tables away with her husband and kids and stuff. You know, and I went into this whole 5-minute routine, and I stood up, and I'm still naked, you know, I'm like, I remember all the little cliches and movies and TVs growing up. Just picture everybody naked. So I did it. I stood up naked, and I did this 5-minute routine. I was like, that was really fun to do. And I ran over to, I threw a towel on, and I ran across our apartment complex, you know, in Cahuenga, and I was like, Dan, wake up. I got something funny. I think we should do stand-up comedy. And for 3 days we worked on it. And for the next 2 weeks, I did 40 open mics. Like I was going to like 4 or 5 a night just to see if I really liked it. And I bombed so hard half the time, and I killed the other half, but I enjoyed when I bombed. And I was like, I got to get back into the entertainment. So I think if I hadn't done Angus, I think maybe I would have ended up doing stand-up comedy of some sort. I probably would have ended up in Second City. There's still part of me that wanted to end up in Second City. You know, there was part of me that wanted to end up in SNL. That never flipped in the cards, but it was one of those things where it was like, there's something about entertaining that it's just in me. And there's so much crazy stuff that's happened to me throughout my life. I told a joke in a Wendy's, and now I'm here. Like, that's ridiculous. I have to share this with people. You know, it's you never know when you're feeling down, you're feeling blue, the world is locked up, and you're all wearing face masks, and people are, you know, fighting for their rights, their God-given rights, and all this stuff. They're still good no matter what that's going to come, you know. So just keep your head up, keep trucking forward, and it's coming. You just don't know when it's coming. Even when it's the darkest, you never know how bright it's going to be the next morning.
No, I definitely feel that, man. That's great. Those are wise words and very, very true. It's worked for you. Honestly, it's worked for me as well. So, I mean, if you just keep on keeping on, eventually things will just open up and you'll be doing what you've always wanted to do. So, Charlie, before we get out of here, man, is there anything else that you want to touch base on? Any shouts outs, anything like that you want to do?
Oh God! Well, shout out to you, of course. Shout out to Justin, my cousin. I shout out to Kim and Frank Carmichael, who've always been there for me. Shout out to everybody I'm working with. Shout out to my pet. Shout out to everybody. This has been a tough pandy, and it's people are doing their darndest to cope and get through. And all I gotta say is shout out to you for being brave and sticking it out and being alone when you had to be alone, when you wanted to be with people, and just remember, be safe, be smart, and we'll get through this. And remember, the fun thing about dark times, once they're over, you can make fun of them so hard. You kidding me? The stuff I've done in Pandy is weird. It's weird. That's all I'm saying. I can't explain it anymore, but it's been like, there's stories that are coming out of this, no matter what. But there's stories that come out of everything. So look at the upside of it. So shout out to everyone.
Definitely. Well, man, thank you so much, Charlie. I definitely appreciate you taking some time out talking to us here. If you ever need anything at all, man, just hit me up, man. And if you're ever in Kenosha, stopping by, let's link up, and I'm sure we can get some people to give us some drinks or some burgers or something.
Well, let's take a quick snap. Do a smile. I'll post it on my Insta.
All right. Yeah. Awesome.
Done.
Nice. Awesome,
dude,
man.
This is awesome. I had such a good time hanging out with you today.
Yeah, man.
I saw you at Bjorn's.
Yeah, I got a new suit, man. So it's funny. It's crazy the amount of support that I've been getting, but it's even crazier how much people actually pay attention, right? I just by chance in a stream, I happen to say hey, I'm not the type of person that wears suits and stuff like that. I just generally don't. But then I got asked to give a speech at the Kenosha Area Chamber of Commerce, their annual meeting. And I was like, maybe they said I don't have to wear a suit. And I was taken back. I was like, oh, they actually watched and they listened. That's so great. And I was like, maybe I will wear a suit just because they actually watch the content.
You step it up. You step up your game. You do your mental homework, and that's what it takes, man.
Yeah, definitely. But I didn't buy the suit randomly. Bjorn's, my buddy works at Bjorn's. He called me. He was like, yeah, someone bought a suit. So if you want to come get fitted, just stop in. And I was like, all right, for sure. So yeah, they got me a sweet suit, nice maroon suit. It's nice and fitted. I actually got it hanging up in my closet. Service at Mike Bjorn's is fantastic. If anybody ever needs a suit or a tux for a wedding, you definitely want to hit them up. But yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And special shout out too. I forgot, my cousin Dean Tallwater. He does a lot of the artwork for the signage and the murals downtown. I know he was having trouble, making sure his business was staying safe, but he was really tore up about all of his, fellow community and stuff like that. And when he shared that with me, it really hit home. It's so weird that you can disassociate so much stuff, because you're trying to figure it out on your own. But when you're not there, it's a different world. So much love to a special shout out to everybody in Kenosha, because it's been a really rare and tough time, and the fact that everybody comes together it means the world to me. So my love to you guys.
Definitely. Yeah, that's what we do here, man. We're going to get through it. And the next time you stop home, man, I guarantee, there's no replacing the Danish Brotherhood, but I'm sure we'll have something beautiful that will be in its stead. So thank you so much, Charlie, man. I appreciate you stopping by and, giving us some time here. Like I said, if you ever need anything in the future, just let me know. We'll definitely help you out however we can. But until then, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been the O Word Podcast, and we will catch you in the next one. Peace.
Oh, word?
Oh, nice.